Okay, so should I just talk over my results?
Yeah.
Okay. Action! All right, so Adam is going to try to get our big five tests linked so we can see how we kind of compare. And while he is trying to get that linked, I thought I would just kind of run through my results. So here are your results. You will see below that you stand in comparison with others in the general population on major traits and their aspects: agreeableness, which is compassion and politeness; conscientiousness, industriousness and orderliness; extraversion, enthusiasm and assertiveness; neuroticism, withdrawal and volatility; openness to experience, openness and intellect. Remember that each personality trait and aspect has advantages and disadvantages. It is for that reason that variation exists in the human population. Okay. So agreeableness, so that is compassion and politeness. I scored moderately high. I'm the 68th percentile.
I scored moderately low. I'm the 26th percentile.
Okay.
So I'm moderately low in agreeableness, which is the primary dimension of interpersonal interaction in the Big Five. Agreeableness has two aspects: compassion and politeness, which will be explained separately. People high in agreeableness are nice, compliment, nurturing, kind. However, because of their tendency to avoid conflict, they often disassemble and hide what they think. People low in agreeableness are not so nice, stubborn, dominant, harsh, skeptical, competitive, and in the extreme, even predatory. However, they tend to be straightforward, even blunt, so you know where they stand, which is very true of me. So let's hop down to maybe compassion. We'll kind of just take little sections.
Okay. Sorry, there's so much to read.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff, and you'll probably want to read over it and like kind of come back to it and like spend time with it. So,
right.
So the next thing is compassion. So I'm typical or average at 48%.
I am 77th percentile. You are more compassionate than 77 out of 100 people.
So people who are typically compassionate people are reasonably interested in the problems of other people and other living things. They're somewhat concerned about helping other people avoid negative emotion, but are willing to stand their ground even when others get upset. And then what does yours say?
You are moderately high in compassion. Moderately compassionate people are interested in the problems of other people and living things. You might notice I have a lot of plants. I really like living things. They're concerned about helping people avoid negative emotion. They may make time to do kind things for others, even when doing so may interfere with fulfilling their own needs or interests. They have a noticeably softer side. Other people consider them sympathetic and nice, and will turn to them often for a listening ear. Hey, if you need somebody to listen, I've got an open chair. They are empathetic and caring. However, because they are so others-oriented, they may find it difficult to negotiate on their own behalf. True. And they may not get what they deserve for their hard work, for example. Ooh, yes, I am. I do not feel that I'm good at negotiating because I don't want to be pushy, and I often don't think that I deserve things.
Yeah. So one of the things it said in mine that I just wanted to highlight was it said they have a soft side but are not pushovers, and I think that seems pretty true about me.
Yeah.
I can come off as, which you'll see in the next thing here, I can come off as kind of direct and almost calloused, but like I have a soft side. So just a thought.
He definitely does. Disney movies.
Yeah. Hallmark movies.
Hallmark movies.
So the next one is politeness. I got low. I am the 12th percentile.
Oh! I am typical or average at the 52nd percentile.
So people who are low in politeness are not differential to authority, nor are they obedient. They can be respectful, but only to people who clearly deserve and demand it, and they are markedly willing to push back when challenged. Yes. They are not particularly uncomfortable confronting other people. People low in politeness are not motivated to avoid conflict or to steer clear of conflict or fights. They may find themselves quite frequently in trouble with authority. Correct. Their skepticism may make it difficult for them to find a place in the middle or lower hierarchies of power and dominance, also correct. They tend to be strongly to be dominant rather than submissive, particularly if they are low in neuroticism, which is something we'll get to later.
Yeah, this seems pretty accurate to me. Typically, polite people can be differential to authority. They can also be challenging when they find it necessary. They're not particularly obedient. They can be respectful but push back when they are pushed. They stand up for other people. They try to avoid conflict reasonably, but they're not completely adverse to confrontation. I feel like that's pretty true of me. I will most of the time try to find any other way to communicate with somebody without having it turn into a full-blown conflict. But if I need to confront somebody and I feel really strongly about it, I will, even though it's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then the next one is contentiousness, which I think
Conscientiousness.
Conscientiousness, sorry.
Which makes a lot more sense. You've been walking around the house saying contentiousness.
Sorry. Conscientiousness. Did I say it right that time?
Yeah, but that makes a lot more sense than contentiousness.
Apologies. So this is what's your score?
I am moderately high.
What's your number?
66.
I am a 0. Your score puts me at the 0th percentile. If you were one of 100 people in a room, I would be less conscientious than 99 of them.
Oh my gosh. Okay, for me, you're moderately high in conscientiousness, which is a primary dimension of dutiful achievement of the Big Five model. Conscientiousness is a measure of obligation, attention to detail, hard work, persistence, cleanliness, efficiency, and adherence to rules, standards, and processes. That is very on the nose for me. I do find a lot of sense of duty or responsibility. I like to be a detail-oriented person. I like to make sure everything is thought through before I take action. So that seems very accurate.
So my little blurb at the top says you are exceptionally low in conscientiousness, which is the primary dimension of dutiful achievement in the Big Five. Conscientiousness is a measure of obligation, attention to detail, hard work, persistence, cleanliness, efficiency, adherence to rules, standards, and process. They implement their plan. People exceptionally low in this do not consider duty as a virtue or an obligation. Instead, they regard those who slog away diligently at tasks as suckers, teachers' pets, and bootlickers. They will not even work hard if directly and continually pushed by outside forces. They can be exceptionally skilled at wasting time and slacking off and justifying it. They are almost certain to procrastinate, particularly if they are also above average in neuroticism. Even if they do not commit to doing something, even if they do commit, they will be late or delayed, even when there is absolutely no reason for failing to deliver. Yeah, so that's all pretty true.
But people like me, who tend to be a little bit more conscientious, tend to slog away at a task until it is finished. I would say that's pretty much true for me. They work reasonably hard and they do not like to waste time. And I find that to be true in my own internal dialogue, even during counseling sessions. One of the things I have to repeatedly remind myself of is just be here. Just be here with the client, with the person sitting in front of you. Just be present and actively listen. Because I feel so much pressure to not waste their time. I don't want them to be sitting in a session feeling like they're not getting anything out of it when they leave. I'm always thinking of the goals that they set, that we set together in their treatment plan at the beginning of our therapeutic relationship. I usually do treatment plans around session 2 or 3. After we've already put that in place, I put a lot of responsibility on myself to be meeting those goals. I don't want my client to feel like I'm wasting their time. I don't want to not be conscientious during their session, which is something for me as I'm growing and learning and practicing in my private practice, practicing my skills of being a counselor, reminding myself that being really efficient and not wanting to waste time, while I do think that's kind of a virtue, can also damage a relationship. because part of being a relationship is being messy, is being in the not super focused, not super driven moments of like just being willing to sit in somebody's pain or confusion with them.
Yeah. So the next one is industriousness.
I am moderately high, the 62nd percentile.
I did much better on this one. The second percentile. Exceptionally low. People who are exceptionally low in industriousness are extremely unlikely to be successful in school and in administrative and managerial positions, particularly if they are also less intelligent, which I do remember. I have a high intelligence, so I think that makes it so I can do some of that stuff a little bit better, but not very good. If they are highly intelligent, they will almost certainly be regarded as underachievers by themselves and others. Yes. They don't regard work as worthwhile or important and are almost certain to procrastinate, miss deadlines, or fail to complete assignments or projects completely. Yes. They shrink all responsibility, concentrating on worry, relationship, excitement to creative endeavor. Sorry, worry didn't seem to fit there. They aren't all concerned with or interested in schedules, timelines, or efficiency, and are unlikely to complete their task even if supervised excessively. They lack the focus and are far too easily and continually distracted. Funny, interesting story. I had a job a couple of jobs ago, and it was not a good place. And the manager, the clinical supervisor, kept pushing me harder and harder and harder. And every time she pushed me harder, I ran further away from doing work to the point where I more or less got laid off or got fired. And I think that's kind of what this is getting at, is how it's almost like if I'm pushed harder, then I almost want to be no, I'm going to go someplace else. So what does yours say?
Moderately industrious people are reasonably likely to be successful in school and administrative or managerial positions. They don't live to work. Holla. However, they do not always need to be doing something useful. That's true. I do definitely like to have, some chill time. They're generally quite dutiful. However, they tend to put things off or mess things up. I feel like I mess things up, but I don't know if that's entirely true. If in actuality I do mess them up. They tend to finish what they start, pretty much on schedule. That's fairly accurate. They have a genuine interest in considering how to accomplish more in less time. With me, I'm a big budgeter, so I like to try to challenge myself to figure out how to do more with less money, too. How can I, make something look like it costs a lot, but it's actually secondhand or something. How can I clean it up or spray paint it or, do something to make it cost less but make it look
How can we buy wood at Home Depot instead of buying a tabletop at IKEA?
Right. How can I build it for cheap instead of buying it online?
So the next one is orderliness.
I'm moderately high. 66.
Jeez. I zeroed back out.
Oh my! You're at 0? Oh my gosh!
So.
Okay. Moderately orderly people can be somewhat disturbed, even disgusted by mess and chaos.
People exceptionally low in orderliness, like this guy, or are never disturbed, upset, or disgusted by mess, disorder, and chaos. Never seems a bit of an overstatement. Sometimes it eventually gets annoying to me. They appear almost completely blind to such things. Again, sometimes it depends. Go ahead.
I just found this interesting. To be creative and to reach creative endeavors often requires mess. I feel a little bit validated. I feel a little bit vindicated in my, third of my 33% of being okay with mess. Sometimes I require a little bit of chaos.
This thing here says for me that they see the world in shades of gray, never in simple, straightforward black and white, and are extremely non-judgmental and devil-may-care in their attitude towards themselves and others. I do find it interesting, though, in a connection to this, is one of the things that I've started to do recently in my life is that I will make unimportant decisions very black and white to simplify my life, which is something I feel like I've been doing kind of maybe to help with this without even realizing it. Like, for example, I almost always drink black coffee now because it's easier than thinking about, like, oh, what creamer do I want? What sugar do I want? Do I want honey? It's easier to just make the decision, right? Like, just go black and white, because so much of the other stuff in my life, especially I think mentally, is disordered. And so it's like, make these decisions simple, like fit in this box, and then I can kind of just knock those ones out. It's officially called, to my understanding, it's officially called chunking, which means you take something and you just put it into a chunk. So like, rather than having to walk up to a coffee bar and it'd be this, you just chunk it by saying it's this, right? Like, if I'm going to go to any place that's not Starbucks, odds are these days I'm going to get an Americano. And if they ask me, do I want cream, I'm going to laugh in their face because I ordered an Americano.
That's not true. He will not laugh in their face.
Okay. I'll want to laugh in their face.
He is much more polite than that. I don't know how he scored. I don't remember on politeness, but he'll just politely answer.
Yes. But that to me is like taking pieces and just making it more simple, because there's so much other stuff happening, right? Next one is extraversion.
Okay. Again, I got moderately high at 63 percentile, so I'm like 2/3 extroverted.
I got a little bit better, heading in the right direction, 28th percentile.
What? I feel like you're way more extroverted than I am.
Yeah, just wait. People with moderately low levels of extroversion are not particularly enthusiastic, check. Talkative, check. Assertive in social situations, check. Gregarious, which I don't even...
Gregarious.
They tend to find excessive social contact draining and tiring, check. And crave time alone to be recharged. We'll talk about how Bridget and I are probably opposite in that. Slightly. They are less likely to plan parties, tell jokes, make people laugh, or volunteer for community activities. They are somewhat more likely to be depressed and to have lower levels of self-esteem, particularly if they are high in neuroticism, which I don't remember what I am. They are less optimistic about the past, present, and the future.
People who are moderately extroverted don't often keep things to themselves, tending instead to share what they're thinking with everyone. They're self-disclosing, and they are warm fairly rapidly to other people. They're among the first to speak in meetings. They can be captivating and convincing. They're likely to be the first to act in an ambitious situation. So I find that interesting. The part about, like, they don't tend to keep things to themselves, instead they share what they're thinking with others. I think that's another part of, like, my six Enneagram, is that I think I tend to be a much more, like, external verbal processor. And I don't know if it's so much that I'm just like, I can't keep things to myself, so I have to tell everyone. I think it's more like, is my thought process sounding okay to you? Like, let me kind of run you through all of the thoughts that I'm having, and you let me know, am I on the right track, or am I, like, just completely out in left field? So I don't know if it's so much that I can't keep things to myself. I think it's more like, with trusted people, I want feedback to know whether or not I'm, like, completely crazy.
I think that as we get into the next two, like, because all these things, there's like an overarching one, and then they break down into two, right? I think when we get into the next two broken down pieces of extroversion, I think it'll make more sense why I scored so much lower.
Okay.
So it'll make sense. So the next part of that one is enthusiasm. So I'm very low in enthusiasm, 8%.
70.
So she's really high. So individuals who are low in enthusiasm are quiet and unexcitable, check. They can be very hard to get to know, check, as they are not at all chatty or bubbly. When they do talk, and they do so comparatively rarely, it tends to be about things in which they find exceptional interest. They are open to other people with difficulty. They open up to other people with difficulty, particularly in large social gatherings or parties, when I was like college age, I was the master of like the like isolation in a party. Like I would get one person alone and have like an intellectual conversation with them, not in the big group. Hated the big group, right? So what does yours say about being much higher than me?
They're somewhat excitable, happy, and easier to get to know. They laugh or giggle more than average. I mean, I think I'm kind of funny, so I notice myself giggling at myself a lot. They would rather spend time around other people than alone. I don't know. A lot of times when I take like the Myers Briggs, I tend to flip flop on I and E about whether or not I'm introverted or extroverted. So I don't know. I must be kind of in more of a social season of life than normal. Because this put me at actually a lot more enthusiastic and like, you know, open and bubbly than I tend to think that I am.
Which I'll just say real quick. So the Myers Briggs is like the most probably well known personality test. Uh,
Or the 16 types you might have
yeah,
heard people talk about.
yeah, like INFP, ENFP, all that kind of stuff. I hate it. I hate it primarily because it's from like the 30s, so it's kind of outdated, and
It's very situation
it's
based.
very situational based, and also it's like its test retest reliability is garbage, right? So like you could like eat like a good meal right beforehand. So my thing, my IMIE, which is extroversion, introversion in their thing too, my will literally be like one day if I'm like feeling good and I like had too much coffee and I'm kind of like I want to be around people, then I will flip to an E or it'll be I. So all right, so next one is assertiveness. So this is where I think it'll be interesting for me. You ready for this?
Mm.
So remember, my enthusiasm was 8th percentile. My assertiveness was 63rd percentile.
Oh, okay. I'm at 52nd.
So I think that explains why it seems like I like odd that my extroversion is so low because I'm
Because
fairly
you're more
assertive,
assertive.
right?
Okay.
And so then it says moderately assertive people are more take charge types. They put their own opinion forward, are somewhat likely to dominate and control social situations. So I kind of had that thing, like I said about the party, right, where I figured out how to control a setting. They can be influential and captivating. They have the communication style that is more often associated with leadership, which I avoid being in leadership, and I'm not good at orderliness, but I have the ability to communicate like a leader, I suppose. This is good when they are knowledgeable, competent, and able, but less good when they aren't. Moderately assertive people tend to be more action oriented. They are less likely to wait for others to lead the way. Now and then they may be impulsive, in consequence, acting too quickly without thinking. Yours is the same, right?
It's fairly similar. Mine's a little bit lower. Um, they can take charge. They can be spontaneous, but they'll often let others lead first. They can put in their own opinions, but they don't feel compelled to do so. Not particularly dominant. Do not strive for control. At times, they can act in an influential or captivating manner, but it's not habitual. Um, they tend to be particularly impulsive, which I find really ironic because I think I am one of the least impulsive people ever. I think I overthink most of my decisions, even small ones, and tend to act without thinking. I don't know of a time that I've ever acted without thinking. Yeah. Anyway.
So the next one up is neuroticism. I want to just kind of read the little blurb about neuroticism because this one confused me at first.
Okay.
So neuroticism is the primary dimension of negative emotions. It is a measure of general sensitivity to negative emotions such as pain, sadness, irritableness, or defensive anger, fear, and anxiety. So like I just kind of wanted to put that in there. I think the term neuroticism gets used in a way that's not 100% that, and so I kind of wanted to read the definition.
I think it often gets used the way that like hysteria got used a lot in like early psychology, particularly toward women. That women are very like hysterical, we're very neurotic. The whole wandering uterus situation, which is not true. But I think they tend to play up women's emotions as like, oh, she's just out of control. Um, but I think all people have the ability to have these emotions like pain, sadness, irritability, defensive, anger, fear, anxiety. Everybody has the capacity to feel those, or at least the majority of people have capacity to feel those.
With all that in mind, what's your score?
88.
I'm 29.
Oh.
So, and they do say, so one of the things that...
I said the majority of people.
Yeah. Before we read our little things, one of the things they do in here is near the bottom, they kind of break down like how much the thing is a predictor of political beliefs, liberal or conservative, and then it also says like it breaks it down by men and women. So the typical woman is higher in neuroticism than 60% of the general population, and so women are more typically higher in neuroticism is basically what it works out to. So
Ayo.
just kind of like, so for some more information that's kind of in there, we haven't really talked about that because it's not super important.
People with high levels of neuroticism are more likely to think that things have gone wrong in the past, will go wrong now, and will continue to go wrong in the future. They're often more likely to be anxious and irritable when thinking about or remembering probably negative things that have happened when they encounter a genuine problem. They have substantially lower than average levels of self-esteem. Yeah, I've struggled with self-esteem, particularly when they are low in extraversion. Okay, particularly when they're low in extraversion. I was, what was it, like
You were pretty high.
I was pretty high or pretty average?
Yeah, you were like a little
moderately high. Okay, 36. Okay, or 63, I mean. Okay. Yeah.
Whereas me, moderately low, people with moderately low levels of neuroticism tend to not focus on the negative elements, anxieties, uncertainties of the past, present, and future. They can have periods of time where they are unhappy, anxious, and irritable, particularly when facing a serious, sustained problem. But they generally cope well, don't worry too much, and recover comparatively quickly when they're stressed. They're pretty good at keeping their head in a storm, and they tend not to make mountains out of molehills. So one of the things, Bridges talked a lot about the Enneagram, so I'll pull it in. I have this, in the Enneagram, there's wings, so it's the second part of your personality. I'm a 4, which is like kind of melancholy, I'll just say. That's a really basic definition, but they have a tendency towards melancholy, and I will kind of say that there's just stretches of time, like a day or two, where I'm just like down, right? And it's like, it'll literally just be like, I'll be down for a day or two, and then it's just like, okay, I'm done with this kind of thing almost. It's not quite that simple, but it looks like that, so that's pretty accurate. Next is withdrawal.
Ooh, are you surprised by this? I got 91st percentile. Jeez. So I am more withdrawn than 91 people out of 100.
Surprisingly, I was the 41st percentile, so I'm typical or average.
Individuals very high in withdrawal may feel extreme levels of anticipatory anxiety. This makes it very much more challenging for them to approach new, uncertain, unexpected, threatening, or complex situations. They're instead much more likely to avoid or withdraw in the face of unknown and unexpected. That's pretty accurate for me.
Individuals who are average in this withdrawal may occasionally suffer from anticipatory anxiety, but are generally not impeded by it. They can handle new, uncertain, unexpected, threatening, or complex situations quite well. They are not more likely to avoid or withdraw in the face of unknown and unexpected. It's pretty common, I feel like, where I will say stuff like, I really just don't want to do this. But then, like, we'll go do it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there's a pretty high level of, like, I don't want to do it. I want to avoid it. It's not something I want to face, but I'm not going to be impeded by it. And then I believe, we got a few more. Okay. And then the second part of neuroticism is volatility.
I am 80th, so I'm pretty high.
I am 21st, so I am low. Not very low, but low.
Okay. Individuals with high volatility tend to vary in their mood. They can be irritable, reacting strongly to disappointment, frustration, pain, and the threat of social isolation. They can lash out and are more relatively easily annoyed. Um, they're more likely to act out or verbally express their frustration, disappointment, or irritability. I would say that that's somewhat true for me. I think that I can be easily irritated, disappointed, or frustrated about things, but I think that tends to only be things that I feel really strongly about. Like I have some kind of like personal attachment to. Um, like for instance, if there's like a project that I'm working on and it's not going well, or I feel like other people aren't taking it as seriously, I can get really frustrated by that because it's something that I'm putting a lot of myself into. I have a goal in mind for it. But I don't think that I tend to lash out at people, but I can be very verbally expressive in how annoyed I am.
Individuals low in volatility are stable and predictable in their moods. They are not irritable and much less disappointment, frustration, pain, and loneliness. People find them easy to get along with and can often relax around them. I hope so.
Hmm.
And then next is openness to experience.
All right, I am killing a bug. I am moderately high. I'm 61st percentile to openness to new experiences. Um, yeah, I would say I'm a halfway open. Like if you pique my interest, I might be willing to hear you out. I don't know if I'm willing to like jump in and be the first one to try it, but yeah.
I am exceptionally high at 96%.
Oh
So
my.
what does yours say about yours?
People with moderately high levels of openness to experience are somewhat more likely than average to be characterized by others as smart, creative, exploratory, intelligent, and a visionary. They tend to be more interested in learning and acquiring new abilities and skills. They are curious and exploratory. They find themselves interested in abstract thinking, philosophy, and the meaning of belief systems and ideologies. They attend cultural events such as movies, concerts, dance recitals, plays, poetry readings, gallery openings, and art shows. They enjoy writing. They enjoy complex, abstract ideas more than the average person and like to confront and solve problems.
Seems pretty true.
Yeah.
And I would say the exceptionally high is literally just that, except for with extremely in front of everything. Literally, that's what it says. It's like extremely interested in learning, constantly acquiring new skills and ability, extremely curious and exploratory. Like, it's literally just a higher version of that. So, like, that's a place where I think we definitely, like, line up pretty good. Like, you know, we have fun. We do a lot of kind of, like, open thought things. Like, we're always trying to explore new TV shows and stuff like that. And, like,
I think we like to discuss a lot of, like, complex topics. That makes us sound like a total nerd couple, but I mean we are we like to delve really far into certain things and have long conversations about them in the car or on the couch or whatever over coffee.
The next one is intellect. There's a note at the top of it. Do you want to read that?
Sure. Yeah. Do not confuse the personality aspect of intellect with IQ. Intellect is a measure of interest in abstract ideas, especially, while IQ is a measurement of processing speed, verbal ability, working memory, and problem solving capacity, and it is better measured with a formal IQ test. It is perfectly possible to have a high IQ and a low score in the personality trait of intellect or the reverse.
Yeah, so this is just testing the interest in abstract ideas, which Bridget was just talking about. Like, we like to discuss bigger topics, right? Which is why we're, doing this big topic of going through this thing.
Yeah.
So what did you get?
I am pretty average. I got 54th percentile. So yeah, I think that I have like an average interest in abstract ideas. I think So kind of like thinking back to like high school classes, I really liked things like biology and physics. I could not think of the word. I really liked classes like biology and physics um, because there were things that I could see. I hated and narrowly passed chemistry because it was such a minute level that I couldn't see it happening in front of me. So it was really hard for me to wrap my brain around it, one, and two, to care because it was on such a small scale, it was on such a small level. Like, I can't see it happening in front of me. So I can't conceptualize it very well, and I don't really care because I don't feel like it's making a huge impact on me. Like, I know that it is, but it's not like physics where like if I, pick up a pen and drop it, I can see it fall. Um so like I like abstract ideas, yeah, but even while I was taking the test, I think one of the questions was like I like abstract concepts, or I like really advanced concepts or something like that. And I was like, yeah, but not like to the level of, calculus or something. So yeah, I think that being like pretty much average sounds about right for me.
Yeah. And then I'm very high, so people very high in intelligent or intellect are notably interested in ideas and abstract concepts. I've recently been telling people, like people will ask me, what are you reading about right now? And I tell them, well, I'm reading a book on mass movements and I'm reading a book on economics. And they're like,
You're also reading a book on like vintage aircrafts.
yeah, very, very much into that. So like I'm all about like that kind of stuff. But I still think that's an area where I notice all the time that I'll be like really into an abstract idea and I will literally like talk about it until Bridget is like, okay, you need to shut up. Like,
Well, generally say it nicer than that
yeah,
because I am higher in politeness than you are.
yes. But the underlying theme is you need to shut up. And like, that's been a constant, like, I would say issue for me, which is that like, I will just over talk when it's something that I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. And Bridget will be like, I just wanted to watch TV with you. And I'm like, okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So, next one is just openness, which is under openness to experience. How'd you do?
Oh, which is under the category of openness to experience. I got you. I got moderately high, 63rd percentile, like, kind of 2/3 open. The closest synonym for openness rather than openness to experience, which encompasses openness and intellect, is creativity. So they're saying that like a good synonym for openness is creativity. Moderately open, creative people find beauty to be important. Without an outlet for creativity, they may have a difficult time thriving. They like art or beautiful crafts. They're more sensitive to color and architectural forms. They often enjoy collecting. Can't really see it from this angle, but I do have a fairly good plant collection. I like to do a lot of different hobbies. I like to sew, I like to knit. I'm trying to get into woodworking. I like to do like dabble in graphic design, scrapbooking.
Which I think the plants in particular really marry this with your like kind of routine driven like conscientiousness, right?
Okay.
Wasn't that?
Yeah, yeah.
Where like plants very much take like their collection,
Mm-hmm.
but they're also like you have to water them. You have to like consistently know what's up. You have to like be like, oh man, this leaf is dying. I should take that out. Or like, every day it seems like it's like, look at this one's got a new thing. And so like,
I do get really excited about new leaves.
so I think that that's something like from thinking about it through this big five is something that's like really married that stuff together really well for you. And it's creative because you can put them like, in various pots and like, like make them look good, put them in spaces looking good.
Or give them different names, which Adam often likes to do. Do we say that this is Michael Scott?
Yeah, this plant's name is Michael Scott.
This plant right here, this is Michael Scott because he is a philodendron micans. So Adam named him Michael Scott. We also have a rubber tree that Adam thought I was going to kill because I pruned it back to like about an inch stub above the soil, which has now flourished into a beautiful plant. Adam named it Fighter because it fought. And then there's a fiddle leaf fig over there, which I did a very similar thing. I had it outside during the summertime. The leaves got scorched. I knew that those leaves were never going to come back, so I hacked it down. And it has since birthed some beautiful little baby leaves, and Adam has now named it Champion. So I like.
There's also Bruce Willis.
There's also Bruce Willis and Jimothy,
Jimothy,
which actually Jimothy came before Michael Scott. So, fun fact. But yeah, I do really like collecting plants, and you like naming them.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah.
So then, just real quick, last one. I'm very high in openness. So again, it's basically the same thing as hers, except we're just kind of more extreme. Very open, creative people love beauty, which, I mean, I'm married to my wife. They require an outlet for their creativity ability, or they cannot thrive. They need to be surrounded by art or beautiful crafts. They are strikingly sensitive to color and architectural form, which is why, oddly enough, I loved the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., because they, like, loved is an overstatement because it's terribly painful to go through. But they have like a lobby that's got like all this cool architectural like stuff that kind of harkens back to the Holocaust. Super awesome. If you get a chance to go there, do like collecting things, and same stuff, just more extreme. So I think we're now going to try and get them linked.
Yeah, so those are the big five. This was the big five assessment from this understandingmyself.com resource. I think we're going to spend a little bit more time digging into this stuff, getting our assessments linked. So that will probably be like part 2 when we have a little bit more time to dig into this. But thank you guys so much for coming along with us and kind of doing this real quick and dirty overview of the big five. And welcome Adam. Thank you so much for joining us for the first time.
Problem. We'll see you guys soon. Take care.